gonna do?
Thank you. Before we begin, I've got rubrics for each of y'all just to help me keep track for when I do input grades. So we'll just start and we'll go down the line. If y'all can just give me your name, I'll mark your rubric that way, okay? So on the left. On the left. Gillette Miranda. Thank you.
Brianna.
Brianna.
Yeah, two N's. No dirty.
I'm sorry, Freddie. Freddie with an IE.
Then I'll also be keeping time for you guys. So yeah, if you go over, like I'll stop you, but if you guys want to record yourself as well, definitely feel free to do that, okay? So as always, we're gonna start with the affirmative side and, alter back and forth. So whenever my first speaker is ready, you are ready to go.
I'm ready. Hello, everyone. I am Brianna, and I would first like to thank our opponent and judge for being here. We're looking forward to a great debate. We're on the affirmative side, and today we'll be arguing that on balance, social media does more harm than good. Our framework today here is utilitarianism, the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people, which we believe social media does not provide. First, some definitions. Social media is websites and computer programs that allow people to communicate and share information, opinions, pictures, videos, etc. on the internet, especially social media networking websites. And harm is damage done to something. We're going to be examining the harmful effects of social media on our planet. Our first point is the carbon emissions created by the daily operations of social media. Social media companies use fossil fuels to power their servers. These fossil fuels produce carbon emissions every time we use social media, no matter what we use it for. According to Green Spectre, there were 4.33 billion social media users globally in May 2021. Across the 10 social media platforms, the company looked at their combined use add up to 262 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. That's 0.61% of global emissions, or almost the same as the carbon footprint of the entire country of Malaysia. According to Global Citizens, using each of the 10 most used social media platforms for 5 minutes each day will result in burning 20 kilograms of carbon a year, which is the same as driving in a car for 52.5 miles. All of the pollution is burning through our atmosphere just so people can keep scrolling on TikTok. Our second point is wasted water. Social media companies use astronomical amounts of water to cool down their servers. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, has their data center located in Altoona, Iowa. They make up 60% of the town's entire water usage, 60% of the town's water just to cool their servers down. Additionally, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and more social networking sites have integrated artificial intelligence into their platforms. According to Forbes, AI server cooling consumes significant water, causing up to 9 liters of water to evaporate per kilowatt hour of energy used. Not only are these platforms burning up carbon, but they're burning through our water, the most precious resource we have and need on Earth. Our third point is influencer-driven consumerism. According to Forbes Advisor, 106.8 million people shop on social media. Consumer culture revolves around social media platforms where influencers are crucial in determining trends, tastes, and buying patterns. The influencer marketing industry encourages unsustainable consumption. These products are cheaply made and not built to last, and they frequently wind up in landfalls once the short trend passes. This issue did not exist on the scale before social media because influencers did not exist. These often falsely marketed products fill our landfalls and oceans with plastic waste at an alarming rate, and that's not even accounting for textile waste. Our fourth point is fast fashion. Fast fashion is rapid production of inexpensive, low-quality clothing that often mimics popular styles. Social media has created micro-trends. These are short-lived fashion trends that encourage people to overhaul their wardrobe every few months. This is obviously expensive, so fast fashion companies such as Shein and AliExpress use cheap labor, poor quality materials, and wasteful manufacturing methods to produce trendy clothing at suspiciously low prices so that people can afford to keep up with the trends. When the trend passes, these products end up in landfalls and oceans. There are also more direct environmental impacts of social media-driven fast fashion. Time magazine stated that Shein's manufactures rapid use virgin polyester and large consumption of oil churns out the same amount of carbon dioxide as approximately 180 coal-fired power plants. The United Nations released a 2023 report on sustainability in the textile industry, and it revealed some alarming numbers. The textile industry is responsible for up to 8% of all global emissions. The amount of water it uses is equivalent to 86 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. It is also responsible for 9% of all annual microfiber pollution to the ocean. The UN considers social media not just a player, but a stakeholder in the industry. Without social media, our landfalls would be emptier, our oceans would be cleaner, and our atmosphere would be stronger. Our planet is under attack, and social media is on the offense. This goes beyond harm to an individual or a group. This is harmful to our planet and everything that lives on it, including us, all of us. Thank you.
Use it.
Okay.
Okay.
If we need it back.
Shit. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Charlie Gutierrez, and I'm on the side of the negative. Today, we'll prove that social media does more good than harm through community, democratic engagement, and resistance. Merriam-Webster defines social media as forms of electronic communication through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content. But today, I want to redefine it for you. Social media as a tool for connection, empowerment, and change. Social media and community. Take the Trevor, an example of social media and community. Take the Trevor Project as an example. It's a lifeline for LGBTQ+ youth, particularly those aged 11 to 17 who may feel isolated or misunderstood. Through social media, the Trevor Project extends a sense of community to those who need it most, providing safe spaces and even life-saving hotlines. Or consider Black Girl and OM, which fosters wellness and empowerment for women of color. These communities might never even exist without the reach and accessibility of social media. Platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter aren't just tools, they're bridges, connecting people with others who understand their struggles and share their dreams. But it doesn't just stop there. Social media plays a massive role in democracy. Think about this. How often do you see posts urging you to vote or volunteer in your community? These platforms amplify voices that might otherwise go unheard. Social media helps boost voter turnout, especially among younger generations who are more likely to scroll than watch cable news. Even for those who don't vote, social media sparks engagement in other ways, whether it's signing petitions, attending protests, or volunteering for causes they care about. It's about inspiring people to be active participants and shaping the world around them. And finally, let's talk about resistance. Social media is a vital tool for grassroots movements and even revolutions. It gives people firsthand accounts and primary documents, cutting through censorship and media bias. We've seen this power in action, whether it's movements for racial justice, climate change, protests, or even uprisings against oppressive governments. Social media provides a platform for organizing, educating, and sharing stories that matter. It shines a light where others try to create shadows. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't social media full of misinformation and negativity? Yes, there are challenges, but that's why critical thinking and fact-checking are so important. The potential for good far outweighs the harm. So the next time you log in, remember, social media isn't just a distraction. It's a powerful tool for connection, democratic engagement, and resistance. It builds communities where they didn't exist before and gives voices to the voiceless. Together, let's use it wisely to create a better, more connected world. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, then I will begin my 5 minutes now. First off, thank you again to everyone for being here. This is shaping up to be a really good debate. And then diving into some of the stuff that my opponent said. They have argued about social media being a tool for democratic engagement and resistance. Those things can be true. I agree that social media is a tool. However, that is completely irrelevant when you consider the fact that the affirmative have presented to you already. We told you about social media's detrimental contributions to carbon emissions and water wastage. Do you think that carbon produced by kind social media posts is somehow softer on the atmosphere than those produced by mean ones? Of course not. A tool can be used for good or harm, but in social media's case, no matter how you use the tool, it is burning up our planet. The opposition also presents some examples of positive communities that have been formed on social media. I think that things like the Trevor Project are great, but these communities are not exclusive to social media. Community and camaraderie have existed long before social media and will continue to exist long after. And I would also point out that community is not an inherently positive thing. Social media makes way for echo chambers and for people to form hate groups and terrible things. There are numerous examples of violent crime, especially like racially motivated horrendous incidents being caused by started in echo chambers on social media platforms such as 4chan. That in a way is a community, but it is certainly not a positive outlook.
Information.
Sure.
I would like to ask, while it is true that hate crimes are made possible through social media, is it not also true that hate crimes through racist means like the KKK and skinheads, which existed long before social media, are not a symptom of or amplified due to it?
I would agree that hate is not a symptom of social media, but I'm arguing that neither is togetherness. Both of these things existed before and will exist after social media. The point that I am making is that no matter how you use social media, no matter how good you think that use is, it is still doing harm in terms of water used for server cooling, influencer-driven consumerism, and the direct carbon emissions caused by the fossil fuels used to run these social media platforms. And my opponent brings up that there is misinformation spread on social media, but you can fact check it. When in fact, social media platforms have a direct financial incentive to keep you from going to fact check your information. They make more money off of you the longer you stay on the platforms. The internet at large is a great tool to find information, but they don't want you to leave. Sure.
The question, what about queer and marginalized people who cannot find community in rural areas and must rely on online platforms for suicide hotline messaging?
I have said, I think that all of those things are great, but your burden as the opposition is to prove that social media does more good than harm, as you stated. And everything that you are saying is about how the users may use this platform, but we are saying that social media, the infrastructure of it, no matter how you use it, is harming all of us, no matter what. To go back to what I was saying about misinformation, these platforms have a direct incentive to keep you on the platform. In fact, a psychologist at Cambridge University created a misinformation susceptibility test where participants were asked to distinguish real headlines from fake ones. And participants aged 18 to 29 produced the lowest high scorers. And the psychologist attributed this in part to social media. And as platforms roll out things like the TikTok suggested search function or Twitter community notes, where the further information you can get on a topic are isolated to that platform and continuously made by other users of the platform rather than reputable sources. They keep you on those platforms for longer, and you are not, in fact, fact-checking your information. As I said, the opposition's burden is to prove that social media does more harm than good. They bring up good things that you can do with social media, but we have proven to you as the affirmative that social media is harmful no matter how you use it. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today. So let's jump right into it. To the point of information, since we're opening utilitarianism. Oh, yeah. Since we're sorry, guys. Utilitarianism. What we're saying is that no matter how you use social media, it's wrong. However, I would like to point out that no matter how you use your phone, you're still going to be using those same supercomputers, the same exact ones which require to be cooled down, the same ones you use to text, to call internationally, to call globally, use the same amount of water as social media. In fact, we've been using that long before the internet became as prevalent as it is today. Not only this, but the idea that the environment has worsened because of social media is an entirely misguided one. The Industrial Revolution is in reality what led to the most recorded massive increase in air pollution long before we could even conceive of something like the internet. And if anything, the ability to combat environmental damage has been increased by social media. Consider that Greta Thunberg has been able to reach millions in her campaign against climate change. We are aware of the scientists who have chained themselves to buildings and caught themselves on fire in their fight against climate change because of social media, because those people don't make news headlines. Not to mention that, as we discussed earlier, anti-climate change movements are able to find footing on socials, as is all democratic action. So if we want to talk utilitarianism, how are we supposed to fight for a better world for everyone if we can't even reach each other? On top of that, AI, separate from socials, is what contributes the most to this use of water that we're talking about. Chat GPT is the criminal in that situation, and that is a separate entity from Instagram or TikTok. On top of that, oil spills from mega companies like Exxon and Shell contribute more to climate change than energy, which will be used by supercomputers anyways, ever will. We're able to combat this through socials. The Ohio train explosion in July 2023 was shown on social media before it was ever shown in the news headlines, as was the explosion in the biolab in Atlanta earlier this year. People are able to combat climate change through socials, but they're also able to escape direct environmental disasters through social media before their governments or the news stations will ever even tell them about it. And it's also vital to remember that AI is not an inherent part of social media. In fact, you can turn it off from socials anytime you want, and we use it the most separate from it. We use it the most through chatbots and character AIs. Not only that, but if we want to talk about fast fashion like H&M and Shein, we have to remember that these are corporations, mega corporations, that are accessible due to finances. The criminal here is not social media. The criminal here is the lack of financial ability to buy clothes that are affordable. The reality is people are always going to go onto Google and try and find the most affordable holiday clothing, the most affordable prom dress that they can if they don't have the means to buy the nice expensive stuff. Yes, while it may be true that there are influencers that buy mega packages and hauls on socials, the most common buyers of social media are those who do not have the financial capabilities to buy nice clothing. This is not because some influencer told them to do it. It's because they can't afford really nice things. And that's not the fault of socials. That's an entirely different conversation and thus irrelevant to this debate as a whole. While fast fashion generally does have a negative impact on the environment, we have to include the idea that this is just increased accessibility to affordable clothing, jewelry as a whole. People want to be able to look nice. Socials might help them access that, but there's no way they wouldn't have found it through a quick Google search, and doing so right now will show you as much. So yeah, when it comes to balance, we can clearly see that the issues of fast fashion and environment are not the fault of social media, but rather their own separate issues, which can in fact be tackled through social media rather than amplified through it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm ready, set, go. I would like to start off by acknowledging the point that the internet in general causes the same kind of pollution to our atmosphere as social media, but they're not the same servers. All the statistics that we have provided are exclusive to social media, not just cell phones or the internet. As for their point about pollution existing before social media, yes, obviously, cars pollute. Fossil fuels are obviously the #1 contributor, and most of our electricity does run on fossil fuels, but social media is adding fuel to the fire. We can reach each other without social media, and we have done so for centuries. The opposition argues that AI is the problem not social media, but we have already established that Facebook and TikTok have forcibly integrated AI into their platforms. You go to search something on Facebook, and next thing you know, you're talking to an AI. That is an issue when you're not even actually consenting or wanting to talk to this AI. It's just in the platform and is easily accessible because of the way that they put it with the search bar. That is by design, and social media is designing things to keep us doing that, to keep searching, to keep using their engines, because at the end of the day, that is what is making them their money. Even without the AI, serving coolers still accounts for a large amount of water usage. So this is for the Twitter headquarters and things like that. There's still water, usable water that we could use and purify that is being used to cool these servers. And that, again, is adding fuel to the fire. Fast fashion is driven by micro trends and did not exist before social media. The opposition tried to argue that people will always go on Google and order a trendy, cute shirt, but we have this added layer now. When you go on TikTok, you're wanting to socialize with your friends, and next thing you know, you see a paid ad telling you you can't live without this shirt. That is a problem, and that is a problem that social media has uniquely created. As for they say that activism is an important part of social media. However, I would argue that a lot of the things that social media does when it comes to activism is quickly forgotten. And even though people do raise awareness, it's quickly cycled over when the next big thing happens on social media. I really do believe that we need to center our activism to being more in person. And while social media can be a good tool to use to get the activism out, I don't think inherently using social media for activism is doing more good than harm. Yes.
Would you not say that in order to make the connections necessary for in-person activism, you have to reach a wider audience, which is possible through social media?
I think that there has been revolutions that existed before social media. Specifically, I'm thinking of MLK and giving his speech. He had, I'm pretty sure, like hundreds of thousands of people in front of him taking the speech, and he was able to communicate through through non-digital media, and he still caught the eyes of people. Obviously, social media is able to catch the eyes of more people, but the activism that they're trying to do isn't always good activism. As of recently, we saw rumors of migrants eating pets on Facebook and TikTok, and even though people had came out and talked about the fact from this town that this is not true, the mayor came out and talked about that this is not true, people still believe the social media platform that was feeding them lies and videos, and they place that onto. That is specific to social media. People seeing a video and running with it, and now a whole country thinks something, that is specific to social media. And even though activism can be used, it doesn't mean that it's always good activism. And like they said, social media doesn't even contribute to a large percent of our pollution, but just because something contributes more, like the aviation, no, thank you. Because something contributes more, we should ignore the harm done by social media. That's like saying because animals are abused, we shouldn't look into child abuse, because that's more important. So I think that both of them are problems, and that social media doesn't matter if something else is causing more pollution. Social media can still be doing more harm than good, even if something else is doing more. Social media is not Google, and when someone is going on social media, it is a completely different experience than if you were just on Google. There are paid ads on Google, but social media has done more harm than good through its ambiguous ads and its ambiguous use of energy. Thank you.
Okay. So I would start off with refuting our opponent's claims and then as simultaneously build up ours. So while it is true that AI has been integrated into social media, it does not use water to cool down after a search if you simply do not use a search. AI is something you can easily disable on Facebook and TikTok and ChatGPT, according to an October 2024 civil engineering report, using millions more gallons of water through socials. It is vital to note that while social media works as an amplifier, it is an amplifier of good and bad. Give me 1 second. So this is saying that AI is inseparable from social media is just a mischaracterization, as social media is not inherently tied to AI. These outcomes are driven by the platform's core purpose, which is connecting people and sharing information. Moreover, an article from bornsocial.co states, the harm associated with AI is not a reflection of social media as a whole, but rather a result of specific optional technologies some platforms employ. If anything, there are advantages of AI and social media, but regarding your point about misinformation about um regarding your point about misinformation, it says that misinformation exists independently of social media and has been a societal issue for centuries, propagated through the word of mouth, print, radio, and television long before social media platforms emerged. Social media is a tool that amplifies information, and the root cause of misinformation lies in human behavior and not the platforms themselves. So the Yale Daily News says that researchers have found that recommendation algorithms tend to push users towards more moderate content, and the exposure to problematic content is heavily concentrated among a small minority of people. As for social movements and revolutions, social media is vital in the quick disbursement of information in dangerous situations, such as the students' revolution in Bangladesh, just this summer. The students and youth of the nation utilized Instagram and TikTok in order to quickly organize, disperse, and combat and avoid the oppressive military regime and eventually overthrow their authoritarian prime minister. This would not be possible without social media from Tech Policy 2024, and similar examples can be found in the distribution of media by Palestinian journalists on TikTok and Instagram and many mainstream media sources. They will not report on their personal experience, and as misinformation surrounding the war is rampant, it allows the distribution of primary source media from The Guardian 2024. As for consumption and harmful trends, these have existed long before socials. Unsustainable consumption has been driven by magazines and TV since the 80s. In fact, diet culture, fast fashion, and bad merch has been encouraged by magazines and MTV since the program became popular. Harmful diets, trends, and unethical fashion was a huge issue in the 80s, according to the 2020 Town and Country magazine. While people bought less clothes, in the 70s, substantial rises in fast fashion dates to the late 80s and sits at about the same rate as today. Again, we must remember amplification is not a measurement of good or bad. It is in essence natural quality. And again, social media itself is not a directly cause waste of water, such as the earth.org. The act of using social media platforms does not physically consume water. However, it's the indirect impact of social media, as it can potentially contribute to reducing water waste when used responsibly. Second. And again, while fast fashion generally has a negative impact on the environment, some potential positive aspects include increased accessibility to fashion for low-income individuals, potential for innovation in recycled materials and production techniques, and the ability for brands to incorporate more sustainable practices like using recycled fibers and promoting circular economy initiatives when done responsibly. So the migrants eating the dogs is amplified through a national presidential debate, whereas the social post did not leave the local area. So how is that the fault of social media? For movements and communities, racist communities, oh, I'm about to run out of time, were the most prevalent in the 20s.
Despite its widespread use and popularity, does more harm than good when used through the lens of utility and unity, which seeks the greatest good for the greatest number. Our argument has highlighted the significant, often overlooked environmental consequences of social media, carbon emissions, water consumption, waste generation, and its role in perpetuating unsustainable consumer culture. Our opponent has failed to present any argument for the good of social media that is exclusive to social media. Community, democracy, and revolution has existed before and will exist after. Additionally, as we stated numerous times, server cooling is not exclusive to AI. Finally, their argument does not in any way counteract ours because the ways in which they suggest we use social media to create the harms we have stated nonetheless. Now let's revisit our case. First, let's recap the environmental damage. Social media companies and their constant need for data storage and server maintenance burn fossil fuels and consume vast amounts of water. The carbon footprint of social media is staggering, equaling the emissions of entire countries and every minute users spend scrolling and contributing to a global environmental crisis. As if there weren't enough, social media platforms use AI and cooling technologies further worsening our precious water resources. When we look at the bigger picture, social media's harms far outweigh its benefits. Its impact on the environment is catastrophic. No, thank you. Affecting not just the users of these platforms, but all of us who share this planet. The very tools designed to connect and entertain us are tearing at the fabric of the world around us. It's also worth noting that these environmental costs disproportionately affect vulnerable populations. The communities that are already bearing the brunt of climate change and pollution are often the ones impacted by social media's environmental footprint. For the greatest good to be served, we need to shift focus towards sustainable, away from platforms that promote excessive consumption, waste, environmental degrading. In conclusion, as a result of this proportion of excessive consumerism, contribution to global carbon emissions and strain on natural resources, it is evident that social media causes more harm than good. In light of climate change and destruction of the environment, we should reconsider social platforms' untamed authority as well as the part in destroying our planet. No, thank you. There are now significantly more negative effects of social networking than positive ones. Therefore, you should vote affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, permission. So you said that our arguments were not exclusive to social media, but you would not say the use of supercomputers and harmful rhetoric and climate change are also not exclusive to social and outweighed by the other entities which do the same. Let's take a moment to reflect on the undeniable impact that social media has on our world. It's hard to overstate just how deeply it has woven itself into the fabric of our daily lives, changing not only how we communicate, but how we connect, organize, and dream about what's possible. Think about the power of community. Social media creates lifelines for people who need them the most, those who might feel otherwise isolated or unheard. LGBTQ+ youth, for example, can find vital support and resources through organizations like the Trevor Project. Women of color navigating a wellness space that often overlooks their needs are reclaiming their narratives and practices through platforms like Black Girl and OM. These aren't just digital interactions, they're moments of real connection that make people feel seen, supported, and empowered. Social media also plays a pivotal role in our democratic process. It's a modern megaphone for everyday citizens, encouraging us to raise our voices and take action, whether it's registering voters, organizing peaceful protests, or simply having open discussions about the kind of society that we want to live in. Social media inspires us to show up. It's an incredible equalizer, reminding us that Collective action starts with individual voices. And let's not forget how it fuels resistance and justice. When traditional systems fail or barriers like censorship and oppression arise, social media steps in. It amplifies stories that might otherwise be silent, shining a light on injustices that demand our attention. From grassroots movements to global revolutions, social media proves that it's not just a tool, it's a force. Of course, social media isn't perfect. No tool this powerful could be. There are challenges, misinformation, polarization, and the pressure to always be on. But here's the thing, what matters is how we use it. And when it's used with intention, the evidence is clear, social media connects us, empowers us, and drives meaningful change. Today, we talked about climate change, but we see regarding utilitarianism, there is no way to fight for the most amount of good and for the most amount of people without actually reaching the most amount of people. Despite what the affirmative claims, the interconnectedness of our world is unique to the age of social media, and we're able to amplify our fights for justice in a way which was not possible in the civil rights movements of the 60s. Where there are platforms arguing for fast fashion, there are ones explaining how to be sustainable. So on balance, it is clear that for every bad quality, there is a good. So does social media do more good than harm? Absolutely. It's a catalyst for progress, a bridge for a better tomorrow, and a testament to what we can achieve when we come together with a purpose. If we use it wisely, we will have the power to make it a tool for an extraordinary good. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Well, I have a few minutes for you guys.